Yo, what up, Night Nation? Want to do a video just talking about the state of the program and the state of the season. Obviously, a lot of this stuff has been talked about UCF's horrible start to their Big 12 to the Big 12 era. 0-5 so far. Had some heartbreaking losses, and generally just this season has not occurred how we expected. There was a lot of expectations of us going 7-5, 8-4, maybe with a ceiling of 9-3. There was even some people that thought we could compete for the conference championship. We were coming with a lot of talent, that we were the most ready team out of the incoming four for the Big 12, and that just hasn't proven to be true. It's been a very just sad and frustrating season for UCF. We came in with a lot of high hopes, a lot of expectations. But at the same time, I don't think anyone thought we were going to be world beaters and just come in and take over the conference. But I also don't think anyone thought that we would go 0-5, be gashed by every team on defense, in the run game, and, blow massive leads, have all these second half issues, horrible coaching decisions. I don't think anyone could have predicted what's really happened. So with that frustration and, really what happened in the Mackenzie Milton era is UCF's expectations went through the roof. Our expectations went to like an elite Power 5 level. They really did. You talk about a team like Alabama or Ohio State or Clemson, they lose one single game, their fan base starts freaking out and the season's over. That's pretty much what happened with us since those seasons. Anytime we lost a game, 2 games, 3 games, it was a failure. It was horrible. Then this season happened and how bad it's been. You have people talking about firing Gus. Get rid of the defensive coordinator. Get rid of Gus. He's past his prime. This is what Gus does. This is what Auburn complained about. Get in a new coach, get in a new quarterback. All understandable frustrations. We're all emotionally connected to this team. The reason why we're so angry and maybe being a little irrational is because we care, because we're passionate. So I get it. I understand the emotion behind this because I get emotional about the team. You have 12 to 14 days on a 365-day calendar where you get to watch your team play. It's very limited. It's very fleeting. Think about that. Only 12 to 14 days out of the entire calendar year that you get this. So when you lose like this, it's like, crap, wow, we're going to have to wait another 9 months for to be happy about them again, or another 8 months, whatever it is, to potentially be happy again, to potentially see a winner again. And with UCF Nation, we're chasing that high from 17-18. Let's be honest. We all are. It just felt so good, and we're still chasing it. That's set some unrealistic expectations. But on the flip side, let's break down this season. The over and under by Vegas was set at 7 wins. Okay. So let's not be surprised that we had some losses. I think most reasonable people and most fans and most pundits expected 6 or 7 wins, maybe 8 at absolute tops. That would have been an amazing year. And now that that's happening, or maybe worse than that, people are freaking out. If we do end up somehow winning 3 of these next 4 games or 2 of these next 4 games and finish with 5 wins, I don't really see how we could be upset. There was so many people that said I could see us going from 5-7. I said this in the beginning, 5-7 to 8-4. So if that range happens, you can't really be surprised or upset. Now, if you want to talk about the fashion of the losing, I completely get that. Dating back to the Kansas State game, 3rd quarter lead, only down by a touchdown in the 4th quarter, end up losing by double digits. The Baylor debacle, up 4 touchdowns, looking like we're going to get our first conference win right in the beginning of the conference season, and then you blow that lead and there's no excuse for that. That horrible. Then you get blown out by Kansas. Then you have a super tight one with Oklahoma where you have the lead in the fourth quarter and once again blow that fourth quarter lead. And then, you have last week's game against West Virginia where once again you're down by 3 only going into the fourth quarter, and then you lose by double digits. So I get the upset, the frustration of how we're losing. A couple thoughts on that, though. One thing is Kansas State and Oklahoma are just flat out better than us. It's okay to lose to teams that are flat out better. That the talent is better, and Kansas too, I would even say. Baylor and West Virginia, I think we should have beaten them. I think we could have beaten them. Those losses were pretty inexcusable. Obviously, the Baylor game. So I want to go into why we're losing and then get into the coaching staff. We're losing. I think the Baylor game set such a tone and such a negative momentum that it poisoned the well for the rest of the season, if you will. We win that Baylor game, I think we have a completely different season right now. I think there would have been a chance we upset Oklahoma. I think we would have probably beaten West Virginia. I think at a bare minimum, if we would have beaten Baylor, held on to that lead, we would right now be at five wins minimum. I really believe that. I think we would probably be 5-3 right now instead of 3-5. That game's morally destroyed the team. I think it hurt everything from the chemistry to the momentum to just the overall morale. And morale matters. I mean, look at sports psychology is a real thing. I think that planted something in our heads and it just poisoned the well for the rest of the season. But even despite that loss, UCF has still been in every single Big 12 game outside of Kansas. They have been extremely competitive with the defending conference champions, Kansas State. They went toe-to-toe with the number 6 team in the country at the time in Oklahoma. They went toe-to-toe. I mean, they almost beat Baylor, obviously, blew a lead there. And they went toe-to-toe with a West Virginia team that's over 500. There's just been a lot of things that plagued us. Like one I said is the negative momentum from the Baylor game. Turnovers, second half issues, run defense, and coaching decisions. So what does that speak to? One, I think talent-wise, we're middle of the pack and up to par with most teams in the conference. You don't lose by one possession to Oklahoma. You don't lose by one possession to Baylor. You don't lose by one, you're not in the fourth quarter against 4 out of the 5 conference teams you faced unless you are talent-wise on par. We're not talking about a small sample size anymore. We're talking about 4 out of 5 games where we were in a position to win with either the lead in the fourth quarter or down by one possession in the fourth quarter. This isn't something like we're getting blown out. There's only been one blowout all season, Kansas. So, and think about, and also some of these games that we're in were on the road. Kansas State on the road, Oklahoma on the road. So to me, that tells me the talent was there this season to have wins in conference. But like I said, I'll go back to negative momentum. 2 is the lack of depth. That to me has shined more than anything. Every interview I've ever had with a former UCF player, when I ask the question, what's the difference between a P5 and a G5 team? They say the depth and the lines, like the offensive and defensive line. And that's where we're seeing a huge difference. We do not have the depth on the lines to consistently keep up with the pressure of these bigger Power 5 teams, big guys on each side. We just don't have the depth there. The D-line depth falls off dramatically after the starters. Same thing with the offensive line. And really at every position right now. Think about all the transfers we've gotten in the last offseason. Think about all of the second unit players in general, whether they're transfers or been at UCF for a while or they're freshmen or whatever it is. Barely any of them are playing. Look at the wide receiver position. Nobody plays outside of Baker, Townsend, and Hudson. Nobody plays. At running back, the vaunted running back depth that we talked about before the season, nobody plays outside of Johnny Richardson and RJ Harvey. Offensive line, they've rotated in some guys there. I'll say that. But who's reliable? Metcalf isn't really reliable once Kittler got injured. So there's not a lot of depth there. On the D line, outside of, the big four starters and Malachi Lawrence, who's really playing significant minutes? Nobody. Linebackers, nobody is playing besides Yates and Jason Johnson. Nobody. In the secondary, same thing. The only transfer that was playing was to Jordan Mask, and now he's out for the year. They're not playing Patterson. They're not playing any of those guys that they got from the transfer portal at DB. Not playing any of the wide receiver transfers more than a couple minutes. They're not playing any of the running backs behind the big two. It's just the depth. They clearly do not trust the depth. And then the coaching decisions. Yes, it's been questionable. The 2-point conversion, not making adjustments to the run D, but I think that also goes towards depth and personnel. And then when it gets to Gus, I highly disagree with firing him. First of all, this is his third season. He's had 2 9-win years, and he's been to a conference championship, and he's 1-1 in bowl games. Secondly, this is the best recruiting UCF has ever had in the history of the program by far. Yes, we still have to keep on to the guys we've gotten, but 9 4-stars in the 24 class. He has a way with recruiting. You can't deny that. He has a way with the transfer portal. Can't deny that. UCF has had now 4 coaches in the past 7 years. I want to build consistency with the coaching staff. I want an entire class to go through with one staff or one head coach at least. And also, I want to give Gus the time to bring in his own recruits, which he's only really had 1 or 2 off seasons of that. The sophomore class right now was his first class, and there's not many of them playing because we're a senior laden team. So I'd like to get all of his recruits in, get them, catch up to Power 5 recruiting and see how he does from there. I think it's a huge and be a grave mistake to fire him right now, and I think that's ridiculous. Give him a chance. Everyone's so quick to fire in college football, and it's not always the right decision. He's in his 3rd year. Give him a chance to bring in all of these recruits and see how they do. If he keeps underperforming or putting in 4, 5, 6-win seasons, then we look at it and he probably deserves to be fired. But I'm not going to panic after year 1 when all our recruits aren't in yet. We're not used to the Power 5 level. We haven't even gotten into Power 5 money yet that we're going to get in a few years. So let's see what happens. Let's stay the course before we make some rash judgment. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better. Next year's not going to be any better. But as we start to get more veteran with Big 12 players that we're recruiting from Gus in the coming years, that's when I'll make my judgment. Go Knights, charge on.